I overheard my own family mocking me, so I vanished. Before we begin the story, take a moment to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support means the world to our channel and helps us spread more shocking, true stories to light. Now, let's get started. I grew up in a small, middle-of-nowhere town. The kind of place where success meant getting promoted to shift manager at the local factory or marrying someone whose dad owned a used car dealership. Population, 8,000. But somehow we had 15 churches. Our house sat on the edge of town, a faded blue split level that looked tired even when I was a kid. My dad, Mark, would always brag about buying it for $65,000, as if he had outsmarted the housing market, as if it was the smartest financial move anyone had ever made. But to me, it was just a house. Dad was a construction worker. Tough, loud, full of opinions no one asked for. Every night, he'd groan about his aching back while throwing back Bud Lights, flipping between Fox News and whatever game was on. He had this whole back-in-my-day act, constantly ranting about how soft kids were now, how real men worked with their hands, how my generation was full of weaklings who didn't know a hard day's work. He worked hard, I won't deny that. But every winter, like clockwork, he'd get laid off, and those months were pure hell. The stress, the drinking, the barely contained rage simmering beneath the surface. Mom, Lisa, was the town gossip queen. She worked part-time as a receptionist at a dentist's office, but spent more time chatting with the neighbors than answering phones. Most days, you'd find her planted on the couch, absorbed in some over-the-top medical drama, where every other scene was a doctor hooking up with another doctor in a supply closet. Then there was my younger sister, Katie. Katie, who had dropped out of community college twice. Every few months, she had some new passion, some new career she was sure would change her life, as long as someone else paid for it. First, it was photography. My parents bought her a $2,000 camera. She used it twice. Then massage therapy, paid for her classes, and she quit after 2 months. Then came the MLM scams. First, it was essential oils, then overpriced skincare. Thousands of dollars in inventory collecting dust in my parents' garage. She was 28 now and still found a way to blame everyone else for her failures. I also had an older brother, Jason, the golden child. Star athlete, local legend, until senior year when he tore his ACL. The injury led to surgery. The surgery led to painkillers, and the painkillers led to something worse. He spiraled. 5 years ago, he moved to Colorado, trying to sort himself out. He'd call Mom on holidays sometimes. Out of everyone in my family, he was the only one I didn't hold anything against. Just a guy dealt a shitty hand, trying to claw his way back. And then there was me, the quiet middle child. The one they only remembered when my report card came in or when the Wi-Fi wasn't working. The code monkey they never respected. While my dad was out breaking his back on construction sites and my sister was hopping from one failed dream to the next, I was different. I kept my head down, stayed quiet, did what I had to do. At 16, while the other kids were out drinking cheap beer in cornfields or trying to make the high school football team, I was teaching myself how to code. My school didn't even offer computer science classes. If I wanted to learn, I had to figure it out myself. So I did. I'd spend hours at the library watching YouTube tutorials, reading free programming books online, because our home internet was still dial-up until 2010. No, I'm not kidding. By 19, I built my first profitable app, a simple productivity tool. Nothing fancy, but it made me about $50 a day in ad revenue. For a kid still living at home, that felt like a fortune. More importantly, it was proof. Proof that I could make real money doing this. By 22, I'd landed a remote job as a senior developer for a Silicon Valley company. 6 figures. Stock options. The kind of job people grind years of college for. But I never finished college. Didn't need to. All my employers cared about was the fact that I could code circles around guys with degrees from Stanford. At that point, I was still living at home. The plan was simple. Save up for 6 months, then move out and start my life. But then Dad got laid off again. And for the first time, they couldn't make the mortgage payment. So I stepped in. Just temporarily, I told myself. Just until things stabilized. That temporary help turned into 9 years. 9 goddamn years of being their personal ATM. Meanwhile, my setup now? It was unreal. Custom-built home office. Triple monitor setup. Mechanical keyboard that sounded like a machine gun when I was in the zone. A view of the mountains from my condo. I had a dedicated server rack in my closet running personal projects. I wasn't one of those flashy hustle culture influencers flexing for Instagram. I just worked, built, and stacked cash. Every morning, I was up at 5 a.m., hit the gym, protein shake, then straight to coding by 7 a.m. That was my life. But no matter how much I accomplished, no matter how much money I sent their way, they never saw it as real work. To them, I was just playing on the computer. To Dad, I had gotten lucky. To Mom, I was just distant, always too busy. To Katie, I was a walking wallet. And yet, every time my phone buzzed with a missed call from Mom or a text from my sister asking when I'd be sending this month's help, my stomach would knot up. I was never needed for me, only for what I could provide. Dad would still make little comments every time I visited. You need to get some sun, boy. Ever gonna meet a real girl instead of those computer ones? But in the same breath, the roof needs replacing. We're thinking about a trip to Florida. And for 9 years, I took it, nodded along, made the transfers, fixed their computers for free, paid their bills, let them dismiss my entire career while living off the money it made. I told myself it was fine. That was what family did. What a joke. The moment everything changed, it was a Tuesday. I remember that because Tuesdays were usually uneventful, just another day grinding through work. That morning, I'd been up since 4 a.m., fine-tuning a major update for a client. My team had spent months working on this deployment, and we finally pushed it live at 9 a.m. No major bugs, no rollbacks, a flawless release. Even my boss, a guy who rarely dished out praise, sent me a personal message. Killer work, man. Seriously, we couldn't have done it without you. I leaned back in my chair, riding that post-project high. That feeling of accomplishment, of knowing I'd built something important. For once, I had some free time. On a whim, I decided to surprise my parents with lunch. Hadn't seen them in a while. Work had been crazy. Plus, Mom's birthday was coming up. Thought I'd get a sense of what she might want. So I stopped by their favorite Italian place, picked up some pasta and garlic bread, and drove over. Old habits die hard, I guess, because I parked a couple of houses down, leftover instinct from my teenage years of sneaking in late. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Through the open living room window. And then, Dad's voice. Clear as day. That dumbass really thinks he's important with his little programming job. Sits on his ass all day pressing buttons while real men work. I froze mid-step, food containers still balanced in my hands. Then I heard Mom. At least his button-pushing pays our bills. She laughed. Not in a defensive way. Not in a come on, Mark, don't be mean way. No, she was laughing with him. That cut deeper than any insult. Then Katie jumped in. Did you see the way he went on and on about his promotion last month? Like we actually care about his nerd bullshit. Just tell us how much more money you're sending, Code Monkey. More laughter. Louder this time. I felt sick. Then Dad, smug as ever. Well, he didn't get my looks or my charm, so I guess he had to be good at something. Slowly, I stepped closer to the window, peered inside. They were sitting around the kitchen table. The same kitchen I paid to remodel. Dad was doing some exaggerated impression of me, hunching over, typing on an invisible keyboard, making ridiculous faces. Look at me. I'm Dylan. I'm so smart with my little computers. I make the big bucks, but can't even change a tire or talk to real women. Katie was crying with laughter. Mom wiped tears from her eyes. Remember at Thanksgiving when he tried explaining his job, and Uncle Bill just kept asking if he worked for Geek Squad? More laughter. Then the final dagger. Mom, shaking her head, putting on that fake concerned tone she always used when talking about me. I worry about him, though. Always alone in that apartment with his computers. No girlfriend. No real friends, as far as I can tell. Katie snorted. He's probably one of those in Kells. All those tech guys are. Dad nodded like she had just said something wise. Boy needs to toughen up. Get some real-world experience. They were drinking the expensive scotch I bought Dad for his birthday. Sitting in the kitchen I paid for. Mom was wearing the designer watch I got her last Christmas. And then, well, we should probably lay off him until after he pays for your new car, Mom said to Katie, barely containing her grin. My what? Katie perked up. Oh, I didn't tell you. Mom looked smug. I was thinking we'd ask Dylan to help you get a new car for your birthday. That old Honda is on its last legs, and you need something reliable. Katie's eyes lit up. Holy shit. Do you think he will? Dad, without hesitation. Of course he will. He always does. Just gotta feed his ego a little. Tell him how impressive his little computer job is. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. 9 years. 9 fucking years of supporting them. Paying off their mortgage. Covering medical bills. Funding Katie's endless list of failures. Keeping food on their table. Giving them a life they could never have afforded without me. And they still saw me as a joke. As an ATM, I looked down at the food in my hands. Slowly, carefully, I placed it on the welcome mat. The same welcome mat I bought them last Christmas. Then, for some reason I still don't understand, I took a picture of it. It felt important, like proof. Then I turned around, walked back to my car, and drove away. They never even knew I was there, cutting them off for good. I didn't know where I was driving. I just drove, knuckles white on the steering wheel, jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. Somehow, I ended up at this old scenic overlook about 20 miles outside town. I used to go there in high school when I needed to clear my head. Back then, it was about dumb stuff, grades, girls, figuring out my place in the world. This time, it was different. This time, I was replaying every second of what I just heard. Every laugh, every smug remark. Code monkey, probably an incel. He always does. I'd suspected for years that they didn't really respect me. But hearing it with my own ears, that was different. That was undeniable. And the worst part, they didn't even try to hide it. They were so certain, so goddamn sure, that I would just keep handing them money. Like I didn't have a choice. Like I owed them. Then, as if the universe wanted to hammer the point home, my phone buzzed. Mom. I already knew what it would say before I even looked. Mom, Dylan, honey, when can we expect this month's money? Dad, and I are thinking about that cruise to Alaska we talked about. Oh, also, Katie needs first and last month's rent for her new apartment. I actually laughed. Out loud. The fucking timing. They weren't even asking. They were expecting. Like it was my job. Like I existed for no other reason than to fund their lives. And that's when I realized I was done. I wasn't going to be their piggy bank anymore. Not for another month. Not for another day. Not ever again. I pulled over at a rest stop. Sat in the car for a moment, breathing slow and steady. Then I opened my banking app. I had set up a shared family account years ago. My money, all of it, but I used it to make things easier when helping them. $112,000. That's how much was sitting in there. Money I had planned to keep for emergencies. Money I had once thought I might use to help Katie with a down payment on a house someday. What a fucking joke. I transferred every single cent to my personal account. Then, I closed the shared account permanently. Next, I blocked all their numbers. Mom, Dad, Katie, every single one. Then I went through my credit cards. Found every recurring payment linked to them. Dad's fishing magazine subscription? Gone. Mom's streaming services? Canceled. Katie's Spotify premium? Deleted. Their cell phone bill? Cut off. I even called their insurance companies because of course my name was on their home and car insurance, since I was the one getting the better rates. Had myself removed. Every financial tie severed. I sat there for 3 hours, methodically cutting them out of my life like a tumor. When I was done, I put my phone on silent, turned on some music, and drove home. When I walked in my condo, I poured myself a drink, took a slow sip, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. The storm would come. I knew that. But in that moment, I finally understood something. I had never needed them. They had only ever needed me. The aftermath. Let the storm begin. It took exactly 3 days for the shitstorm to hit. At first, there were missed calls. Dozens of them. Then came the texts. Mom, Dylan, we can't reach you. Is something wrong with your phone? Your father and I are worried. Call us ASAP. Katie, hey, rent is due Friday. Can you send the money today? Dad, son, call your mother. Now, ignored. Every single one. By day 4, they started escalating. Mom called my boss. To this day, I have no idea how she got his number, but she called him claiming there was a family emergency and that she needed to speak to me immediately. Luckily, my boss is cool. He just forwarded me the voicemail and asked, "Everything okay?" Need some time off? I told him the truth. No emergency. Just family drama. Handling it my way. He just said, got it, and never brought it up again. Then, they started calling my friends. Old high school buddies. Distant cousins. Even my gym partner. All with the same desperate plea. We're trying to reach Dylan. It's urgent. Please have him call us. One by one, my friends started texting me. Hey man, your parents are looking for you. Everything cool. Your sister hit me up. Says there's some kind of emergency. Should I be worried? I responded to each one with the same short, calm, factual message. Not an emergency. Just setting boundaries. No explanations. No drama. By day 5, they ran out of options. So, Dad showed up at my building. I was in the middle of a work call when the buzzer rang. Checked the security camera. There he was. Face already red with anger. Pacing. Fuming. Then my building's concierge called. Sir, there's a man here claiming to be your father. He seems agitated. Should I allow him up? My heart hammered against my ribs. For a split second, I felt like a kid again. The kid who was never quite good enough. The kid who got yelled at for spending too much time on the computer instead of helping out. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was a 31-year-old man who had built a life without them. I exhaled slowly. Sent him up. The minutes felt like hours. I paced my living room, adrenaline spiking. Then, 3 hard knocks. I opened the door, and for the first time in my life, I didn't shrink under his gaze. I stood tall, shoulders back, arms crossed. Gone was the apologetic son, always trying to prove himself. In his place stood a man who had finally had enough. What the hell is going on? Dad pushed past me into the apartment, just like he always did, like he owned the place, like he had a right to be here. I shut the door, voice calm, cold. Hello to you too. Your mother is worried sick. The accounts are closed. You're not answering calls. What the hell is this about? I met his eyes, unflinching. I heard you. His face flickered, confusion, then realization, then dismissal. What? Tuesday. At the house. I heard every word. A beat of silence. Then he scoffed, waving a hand. Jesus, son. You're really getting worked up over a little joking around? We were just messing with you. I felt a cold, hard laugh bubble up in my chest. At my expense, while living on my dime. His jaw clenched. That's what families do, Dylan. They tease each other. It doesn't mean anything. I stepped forward. Then I guess the money I send doesn't mean anything either. His expression darkened. Now, wait a damn minute. 9 years, Dad. I cut him off, voice steady. 9 years of me paying your mortgage. Covering Katie's failed college attempts. Buying Mom new appliances. Paying off medical bills. Funding your vacations. And all while you mocked me behind my back. We're grateful for the help, but... No, you're not. I laughed. You're entitled. You expect it. Like it's your right to live off my work while treating me like some fucking joke. His face turned purple with rage. We're your family. That's what family does. They help each other. I tilted my head. Help goes both ways, Dad. Silence. I took another step forward, towering over him now. When's the last time you helped me with anything? He opened his mouth. Closed it again. No answer. I kept going. When's the last time you even asked about my work without your eyes glazing over, just waiting for me to shut up so you could ask for money? Still nothing. Then I hit him with the final blow. I heard you planning to ask me to buy Katie a new car. His nostrils flared. She needs something reliable. After everything I've already given her. I cut him off. After paying for 2 degrees, she never finished? For apartment deposits? When does she take responsibility for her own life, Dad? When she's 40. His fists clenched at his sides. Not everyone can be a fancy computer genius, Dylan. And there it was. The final dismissal of everything I had built. Like I had just gotten lucky. Like I hadn't spent thousands of hours learning, coding, failing, and grinding my way to where I was. The bank was closed. I stared him down. Get out of my house. His chest heaved. His fists twitched. For a moment, I thought he might actually swing at me. Then he stepped back. His voice a low, dangerous hiss. This isn't over. I smirked. It is for me. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I stood in the sudden quiet, waiting for the guilt to settle in. It didn't. Instead, a strange lightness filled my chest. For the first time in my entire adult life, I wasn't carrying 3 extra people on my back. I poured myself another drink. Tomorrow would bring more drama, more manipulation, more guilt trips. But tonight I was free. Life without them. A month passed, then 2, then 6. At first, the messages kept coming. Mom tried everything. Guilt, concern, anger. Katie was more direct, just outright demanding money. Dad? He didn't reach out at all. Too proud. I never responded. And the guilt I expected to feel? It never came. Instead, I thrived. For the first time in nearly a decade, I had my life back. I poured myself into work. Picked up Muay Thai training 3 nights a week. Something I'd always wanted to try, but never had time for because I was too busy being their financial crutch. I started dating again. Met Caitlin, a programmer who worked for one of my company's competitors. We clicked immediately. Same dark humor, same work ethic, same boundaries with toxic family members. I bought a motorcycle. Nothing crazy, just a used Triumph Bonneville I could work on in my free time. On weekends, I'd take long rides through the mountains, discovering back roads and small towns I never even knew existed. My life was finally mine. My money was finally mine. My time was finally mine. And for the first time in forever, I felt free. The fallout. Then, almost exactly 1 year after I cut them off, I got an email. It wasn't from Mom, or Katie, or even Dad. It was from a law firm. Subject: financial information regarding Mark Reynolds. Mark Reynolds. My father. Curious, despite myself, I called the number in the signature. A lawyer picked up. Mr. Reynolds, thank you for returning our call. As I mentioned in my email, we represent Highland Equipment Rentals in relation to an unpaid debt owed by Mark Reynolds. Our records show you have made substantial payments to Mr. Reynolds over the past several years, and we were hoping to establish his current financial situation. I frowned. I haven't made a payment to my father in over a year. We're not in contact. What's this about? The lawyer hesitated. Then, apparently deciding I was worth telling, he said, your father started a construction company about 10 months ago, Reynolds Construction LLC. He rented a significant amount of equipment from our client, failed to pay, and then returned several pieces damaged. The court has awarded our client damages of $887,000, but we've been unable to collect. I leaned back in my chair. 10 months ago, right after I cut him off, I almost laughed. Dad had spent years mocking my job. Easy money, not real work, fancy computer genius. And the moment he lost access to my income, he tried to prove himself by starting his own business. And in less than a year, he destroyed it. I shook my head. I have no knowledge of my father's business ventures. And as I said, I have no financial connection to him anymore. Understood. Thank you for your time, Mr. Reynolds. I hung up, staring at my phone. The irony was almost too perfect. But I wasn't done. Out of sheer curiosity, I Googled my father's name. And there it was. A local news article from 3 weeks earlier. Headline: Local contractor faces fraud allegations. I clicked. According to the article, Dad had taken deposits for home renovation jobs, started demolition, then never finished the work. Families were left with half-destroyed kitchens and bathrooms, and no money to fix them. The kicker? He had blamed me. The article even had a quote from him. My son is a successful tech executive. He'll make this right. The absolute fucking audacity. He hadn't spoken to me in a year. And yet, in his mind, I was still his backup plan. Like I'd just sweep in with my easy money and clean up his mess. The next day, Mom emailed me. Not just my personal email. She sent it to every single email she could find. Even my work account. Even my old gaming accounts. Mom, Dylan, I know you're still angry with us, and maybe we deserve it, but things had gotten really bad. Your father's business failed. We're going to lose the house. The bank is foreclosing next month. Katie had to move back home because she couldn't afford rent. We have nowhere else to turn. Please, if you ever loved us at all, we need your help. Just this once. At the bottom was a GoFundMe link. I clicked it out of morbid curiosity. Help the Reynolds family save their home. $342 raised out of a $180,000 goal. The description? A masterpiece of selective truth. Medical issues. Bad luck. Economic downturn. Not a single word about the fraud. Not a single word about how Dad scammed people out of their savings. But the comment section was where the truth came out. Comment 1. Mark Reynolds took a $5,000 deposit to remodel my kitchen, demolished everything, then disappeared. Now my family has been cooking on a hot plate for 3 months. Comment 2. This man owes my brother $88,000 in unpaid wages. He hired him for a job, then claimed he didn't have the money to pay him. I closed the tab. I felt nothing. No guilt, no pity, just nothing. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Katie. Her voice was different. Strained. Desperate. Dylan, please. Don't hang up. I know you've seen the GoFundMe. I know you're mad, but I cut her off. What do you want, Katie? A shaky breath. We're going to be homeless in 3 weeks. Dad's in legal trouble. Mom's having panic attacks. Please help us. I exhaled slowly. That sounds like a series of consequences for Dad's actions. Her voice hardened. How can you be so cold? We're family. I let out a small, humorless laugh. Family? Family doesn't mock each other behind their backs. Family doesn't treat each other like an ATM. Family doesn't take and take for 9 years and then demand more when the well runs dry. She started crying. The same crying she did when she wanted something. The same crying that used to work. Not this time. So, you're just going to let us go homeless? Let Dad go to jail. I shrugged. Not my problem. A pause. Then, venom in her voice. Mom was right. Money changed you. Made you think you're better than us. I smirked. I was always better than you, Katie. I just didn't realize it until now. And with that, I hung up, turned off my phone, took my dog for a long, peaceful walk in the mountains. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. The final begging attempt. 3 weeks passed. I was in Seattle for a tech conference when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mom, new phone. Emergency. Please call. I debated ignoring it. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe just the need to see this through, made me dial. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice was small, broken. Dylan, your father, he's in jail. I said nothing. She continued, voice trembling. Fraud charges. They're saying 3 to 5 years. Still, I didn't react. We lost the house. A pause. The bank took everything. Katie and I, we're staying at a motel. But we only have enough money for 3 more nights. I leaned against the window, staring out at the Seattle skyline. And I felt nothing. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just nothing. Dylan, please. Her voice cracked. I know we hurt you. I know we took you for granted. But we have nowhere else to turn. I exhaled slowly. What about all your friends? The neighbors you knew for decades? Dad's work buddies? Silence. Then, bitterly, they turned against us. Because of the fraud. Because of your father. So now, suddenly, I was worth something to her again. Not because she loved me. Not because she missed me. Because I was the only option left. That's not my problem, Mom. A choked sob. How can you say that? We're your family. I closed my eyes. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. It was just teasing, she insisted. We didn't mean anything by it. Yes, you did, I said quietly. You meant every word. A long silence. Then, desperation creeping back in. Please, Dylan, just help us get back on our feet. Just this once. I thought for a long moment. Then, finally I said, I'll make you a deal. She went silent, hope creeping into her voice. Okay. I'll pay for 3 months in a basic apartment. Oh, thank you, sweetie. Not a nice one. Basic. I cut her off. I'll pay Katie's tuition for 1 degree program. If she keeps a 3.5 GPA and works part-time. If she drops out again, it's over. Silence. I won't pay Dad's legal fees. I won't pay his restitution. He made his bed. Her breath hitched. Dylan, please. And you? I continued. You get a job. Any job. Doesn't matter what. But you're working. No more sitting around watching TV all day. Silence stretched between us. Finally, a whisper. I haven't worked in years. I shrugged. McDonald's is always hiring. She gasped like I'd slapped her. How can you say that to your mother? I smiled. Offer rescinded. Good luck, Mom. And then I hung up. Blocked the number. For good. The last begging attempt. The next morning, I woke up to an email. It was from Katie. Katie, I know Mom just blew it with you. She told me what she said. Please don't punish me for her mistakes. I'll take your deal. Any conditions. I'll work. I'll study. I'll keep a 4.0. Just, please don't leave us with nothing. I was wrong about you, Dylan. So wrong. Attached was a photo. Katie and Mom, sitting on a motel bed. Around them, garbage bags, stuffed with everything they owned. The remains of a family that had once lived comfortably on my dime. I stared at the image for a long time. Not with satisfaction, not with pleasure, just acknowledgement that these people, the ones who had mocked me, belittled me, drained me for nearly a decade, were now nothing but strangers. Finally, I drafted a response. Me, I'll have my lawyer contact you tomorrow with terms. One mistake, one slip, and it's over for good. Then I set my phone down, took a deep breath, and went on with my day. Life on my terms. My lawyer drafted a real contract, a legal agreement with specific conditions. Katie's tuition paid directly to the school. Apartment paid directly to the landlord. Modest grocery stipend given through a prepaid card I controlled. If Katie dropped out or Mom refused to work, everything stopped. No second chances. They signed the papers. And my lawyer told me something interesting. When Mom signed, she cried. Not from gratitude. Not from relief. From humiliation. Having to prove she deserved my help. Having to sign a contract like a charity case. Good. Maybe, just maybe, she finally understood how I'd felt for 9 years. A new beginning. 6 months later, Katie was actually doing well in school. Turns out, she had some aptitude for coding. Ironically enough, Mom was working as a receptionist at a dentist's office. The same job she had years ago. The one she quit because it was too stressful. I never visited them. Never called. All communication was through email or my lawyer. Clinical. Detached. Businesslike. Sometimes I felt a twinge of something. Not guilt. Not nostalgia. Just an acknowledgement of what was lost. Then I'd remember their laughter. Code monkey. He always does. Probably an incel. And the feeling would pass. My life, finally mine. My career took off. I got a major promotion. The company went public. My stock options became worth millions. I bought a house. A real house. With a garage for projects. With a yard for the German Shepherd I adopted. Named him Rex. Rescue dog. 3 years old. Abandoned by a family that moved away and left it behind. We understood each other. For the first time in my life, my money was going toward my future. Not funding their past mistakes. I also started giving back. Donating to causes that mattered. Coding boot camps for underprivileged kids. Animal rescues. Veteran programs. People who actually needed and appreciated it. And as for my family, they were just a distant chapter in my life. A painful lesson. A reminder that real family isn't about blood. It's about respect. And I would never let anyone take mine again. Ever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you next one.